Hi, friends. So, our symptoms and our thoughts are not the enemy here, okay? And they are in the mind-body complex. They are presenting themselves as they have a function, okay? And the nervous system's function is designed to protect us. And over time, it learned through information and circumstances and everything that we've gone through, what it needs to protect us from. And for the most part, there are numerous exiles, what we call exiles, these fragmented parts of our psyche that are hiding in the subconscious and unconscious levels of the mind. And the brain has learned over time that these fragmented parts, these exiles, they're too vulnerable to show the world. We need to keep them hidden. They have unacceptable emotions and feelings and expressions about them. And it's not safe to show the world these unacceptable feelings, okay? And this is repression 101, right? This is what everybody has hiding out of view. And so it's important that we understand these mechanisms inside of our own being. And over time, like I mentioned in the last video, our brain took in information about what was safe and what was not safe, and it started to develop what we call protectors, and they are exactly what they sound like. They are protecting us from exposing those unacceptable feelings, and they are a distraction. They are basically a distraction. That's how protectors work. They distract us from what we're really feeling. And they're really good at it, right? And over time, if the distraction isn't enough, then they start presenting themselves as symptoms: chronic pain, chronic illness, autoimmune. The list goes on and on. Maybe one day I'll do a list of all my symptoms. Anyway, the reason why that I've seen that we get symptoms is because we didn't pay attention to the protectors, the first layer. And like I mentioned in the last video, is we fight them, we resist them, we don't want them, we don't like them. And this is understandable because, well, one, in spirituality, we're taught, empty the mind, quiet the mind, the looping thoughts, the derogatory monkey mind or whatever is a bad thing. And it's not a bad thing. It's just protectors. And so we want to get skillful at having a relationship with the protectors. And how we have a relationship with the protectors is, first of all, understanding that they're trying to protect us. Okay? Now, if something or somebody is trying to protect us, we usually view that as a good thing, right? If a neighbor came over and warned us about something, we would view that as a good thing. We would be thankful for the warning. And this is the kind of relationship we want to start establishing with our protectors, because they are not bad. They are not wrong. They are not a sign that something is wrong with us. And this is really important. If they are not a sign that something is wrong with us, and this is simply the way the nervous system is keeping things safe and tidy, then what we want to do is start, first of all, looking and seeing what we have been doing in the past. And I shared this with you in the last video that I found myself throughout at least the last 20 years fighting my protectors, fighting the thoughts, maybe even 30 years. I remember seeing things as like a curse, right? Like, God, I have this hypervigilance going on and it's really driving me nuts. And it wasn't until I really understood the mind-body science and understood why the symptoms were manifesting, then I could also understand through the IFS model why thoughts were presenting themselves in the way they were. Now, changing the relationship with the protectors, and I'm talking about both the thoughts and the symptoms, okay? And it's wanting to get to the place of actually being able to see them for what they are and thanking them, which will lead to kind of a softening in the rigidity within the relationship with them, okay? If we are in resistance to them, it's because that consciousness is kind of enmeshed in them. And when consciousness is enmeshed in something, it's identified with it, right? And so that's why when we have protector thoughts and they're in stories or blame or whatever it might be, there is a problem that feels very real to us. It feels real. That's what enmeshment does. It feels real. It feels like a reality. And when we are enmeshed in our protectors, the thoughts become, the stories become what's real for us. And when they're real, most of those protective thoughts have a kind of a charge that is like a threat, right? And so that enmeshment is further increasing a danger message. So when we are enmeshed in thought, we are compiling the message of a perceived threat. Okay, you with me? Which is feeding the brain. Okay? And then we have that, and then we have not liking that, which is the resistance to that. Okay? And this is what I talked about. And we have the resistance to that story, and the resistance only strengthens the protector. Okay? And this is true for our symptoms as well. When consciousness is enmeshed in the symptom, that symptom becomes very real, very problematic, and it becomes another threat. Okay? And this is all coming from the part of the brain which is not rational, right? It only operates on what's safe and what's not. And so if we're enmeshed in the symptom and it becomes very real and it becomes very problematic, and then we start resisting that too, all we're doing is reinforcing and strengthening it. So mind-body science is giving us the clarity that, oh, these thoughts are trying to protect me. Oh, these symptoms are trying to protect me. And we can slowly, through the clarity of understanding, start to become aware of our thoughts and what they're doing. Now, we have to start where we are first, and there might be resistance, okay? resistance to the thoughts, resistance to the symptoms, which is also a protector. Protectors have a way of kind of stacking. And so we want to be where we are and meet the original protector, the protector that's close. Remember, I always talk about the outer layer, and begin to accept that there's resistance so that we can allow it to be there. And acceptance is first and foremost before we can allow. Okay? And this sounds complicated, but it really isn't. It's one step at a time. Okay? All we're doing is using our awareness to see where we are. Accept where we are, and then see if you can allow where you are. Okay? And then what happens is through the acceptance and through the allowing, we're using awareness, right? We're using the awareness of self. When we start accepting and allowing instead of fighting, right away there's a softening. Because this is all protection wants. It just wants attention. That's all it's asking for. It doesn't want us to fight. It wants just attention. And so attention means seeing it, but not really doing anything about it. And when we give it that attention, and then there is a softening, that enmeshment of consciousness, whether it be in the resistance or in the protector itself, starts to loosen. It softens. The rigidity becomes less. Okay? And this is how consciousness begins to free itself up out of the identity, out of the identification with the protector thought and with the protector symptom. Okay? And this is how that urgency starts to lessen. Now, you remember, I don't know if any of you watched some of my earlier videos, I said, it's the self that brings in the message of safety. And it is the self that is what accepts and what allows. The ego doesn't. Ego is in the resistance. Ego is the identification. Okay? Self is what sees it, accepts it, and allows it. And in that softening, in that diminishing of the rigidity, consciousness becomes more free. There is more space. Self becomes more dynamic, more able to see, because we want self to increase. This is the point, right? This is what embodiment is. We want self to get stronger and identity to get less. Less identity in the protector, less identity in the symptom. So as self is getting stronger, its awareness is getting more dynamic, and it can begin to see more and more the subtleties and the not so subtleties of the protector thoughts. Because if you're like me, they're constant. They're like pretty much all the time, right? And so we want to see them not as a job, not as a thing to fix, not as something to do, but just coming from self, so that we can have a relationship with them. So that we can see that they've been there and they're just trying to keep things safe. Now, of course, the emotional expression work is going to have a big role in this, because the more we're able to get into the repression, the less those protector thoughts and the protector symptoms are needed. But I want to just keep this in the protection area right now so that you understand clearly that it's really about having a relationship with the thoughts and with the symptoms and understanding what they're doing and how to start to soften the rigidity of that enmeshment that's in them, that identity of consciousness that's in them, okay? Because the more we can free that consciousness up, the more ease will come into the system. The more simple things we'll get, because this isn't a fix-it thing. We're not trying to figure out what's wrong. We're only wanting to free self so that we can see. That's it. And the more we see, the more we can see with clarity and not buy into it, not needing to see the protectors as wrong or bad, but just that they're doing their job. And like another viewer had mentioned on the last video, that she tried it and immediately she noticed the softening. Okay? And that softening is exactly how it works. It softens, the rigidity diminishes, and consciousness is freed up some more. So this is how working with the protectors, which is really important, is going to start bringing more safety into the system. Fighting protectors, seeing them as something wrong is just a false perception, a false understanding, okay? So I wanted to clear this up for you, and hopefully you found it helpful. All right, and I'll see you next time. All right, take care. Bye-bye.